so much for coming today. I had a bit of a laugh because last year I did a workshop. Was anyone with me last year? Came and saw, yeah. So last year we did coping in crisis, and then this year we've got dealing with depression. So it's sort of a downhill slide. So next year I'm going to do embrace it. I don't know. I don't know what comes after that. EF. Well, actually, probably that's the end of that. But yeah. Formulating funerals. I don't know, something like that. But I'd never dreamed last year that I'd be getting up and saying this year. So, I mean, were you guys in my main session where I've kind of told you what you're supposed to be kind of going from glory to glory, and it kind of like, I think I probably still am, but it's sort of not how I expected it to be. And so it makes me kind of wonder what, revalue and revisit what that glory to glory actually looks like. And if there's one thing that I'm beginning to learn, or I've learned over the years, is beginning to embrace this upside down gospel. And actually saying, if you look through the gospels and you look at the teachings of Jesus, he said the first shall be last. And if you want to become the greatest in my kingdom, you have to become the least. And, suffer the little children to come unto me. And unless you have the faith of a child and a mustard seed, it's all the backward stuff that actually seems to make sense in the economy of God. And I don't think, I'll say as a premise now, I'm not convinced that perfect health, abundant wealth and joyous daily happiness is actually the plan that God has for our lives. I think he is far more interested that we are full and rich and gritty, and we are taking on our lives with some maturity. If he brought us up as little bubblegum Christians, if we were candy floss and everything was perfect and beautiful, we would never grow up. And I know that I could get every single one of you up here today and to actually say there comes a time when you look back at the problems and the challenges of your life, and much as you hate to admit it, they are the making of you. They are the things that actually make you kind of go, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, and yet I wouldn't give it away for the world. And it's a weird sort of dichotomy, and you can't explain that to someone who's going through the middle of it, or someone who's starting at the beginning of it, or someone who's going into the life with these beautiful dewy-eyed optimism. Because you don't want to say to them, hey, it's going to be really awesome when it all falls apart, or it's going to be so good. I went to, because you're on life, right? And I went to a wedding a while ago, and everyone was lining up and they're writing in the book, and it's going to be amazing, all this stuff. I just got to the front and I just wrote, good luck. And I'm like, to be honest, I was like up there going, the stats are 50-50. Doesn't make any difference if you're a Christian or not. What it means is every day you wake up and you decide, I will be married to this person. But they have to wake up and think the same thing. Because you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them stay married to you. So the reality is we don't know what's going to happen in our lives. And I had no idea last year that I would be standing here today looking and doing this. But there is something inside of me today that says, the artist in me, I don't know if any of you are creatives in the room, there's something about the artist in you. When you're going through the deepest of darkest of despair, and this little voice on your shoulder goes, this is going to make a really good song. Yeah. Shut up. I'm like, honestly, stop it. And there's something in you, it's so frustrating. The worst times make the best artistic material, right? And they just kind of, and something inside of you knows that out of that's actually going to come something. And so through this process this year for me, I've gone through for the first time in my life a course or a battle or a relationship with, actually, is probably a better way to put it, clinical depression. And something inside of me this whole time is going to be, it's going to make a great workshop. It's going to be really good. It's going to be like preaching gold, and it's so annoying because in it, I'm not in there going, oh, I'm really learning lots of things in here. I'm actually, honestly experiencing this firsthand. I have been in through this, but because I'm nearly 44, and because I've become a little more self-analytical, part of me can step outside of that and almost watch the process going on. So, as we mature and we grow, we know ourselves quite well. And while we're having our little tantrum or we're doing our little thing or we're part of thing, I recognise this behaviour. I see that's my unbearable feeling bursting up. I see that my love language is not, but you know what I mean? We begin to use all the tools we've had come into play. So in this room today, we've got people with incredible maturity. Some of you will have walked through this. Some of you will be walking through this. Some of you will have people in your world who are walking through this. And I would encourage you to not only embrace the process, but to step outside of it and go, how can I use this? Can I, like I look around, I'm thinking any one of you will be able to help somebody. And it seems a little cliche, if I just help one person. But to be honest, in that moment, it's actually true. It is actually worth it. Because if one person can make it out the other side, then it does feel like there's some validity to the pain of the process. Firstly, I want to say I am not a mental health expert professional in any way, shape or form. So I'm not going to diagnose you. I am an entertainer. I'm a comedian. The fact that I'm standing up here talking about mental health issues is probably funny in itself. However, I want to say to you that all of mental health issues and all of our emotions and stuff, they are just, in my mind, they are normal created responses. God created us with a range of emotion, right? And I don't think that suddenly we're all well and we're all happy and healthy and then suddenly we're sick or suddenly we're depressed or suddenly, to me, and from what I can understand, it's just an extreme of normal behaviour. And I didn't go along, to be really honest, we're all crazy. Hey, like we're all a bit nuts, you know what I mean? And so when I was brought up, I would have just categorised people into like nutty and not nutty, and so the ones who it seemed to be working for, well, they're obviously okay, and then all the rest of them are just a bit crazy. And it's very easy just to lump everyone, well, they're kind of nuts, But the reality is we are all on what I call the spectrum. Okay, so you're familiar with the autistic spectrum? So the spectrum of autism actually says, and it recognises the fact that we don't have kids who are non-autistic and autistic, but there are children that sit on, and that we say they're on the spectrum. Some have slight tendencies towards that kind of thinking, some have advanced tendencies towards that kind of thinking, some wander to and fro between, and we recognise that there is a spectrum of behaviour. I would suggest that spectrum goes all the way around into all the things that we would call normal behaviour as well. They're not just suddenly a bunch of weirdos either. And so when we talk about depression and we talk about anxiety and mental health and stuff like that, this is normal. If you did not have some depression in your life, if you did not have some anxiety in your life, if you did not have some range of emotional up and down, you would be in a vegetative state. And we need those things. Now, when I went to buy my house, so I'll put you a little bit in the picture of how I ended up here. So at the beginning of the year, as I said, I entered a relationship, and I've been through a divorce. My husband left me 3.5 years ago, and so I've been through heartache, I've been through pain, I've been through all that, I've been through the dealing of him, being in another relationship and that sort of thing. And at the end of last year, I felt what I would refer to as burnout. So you would recognise the signs of burnout. There's a flatlining. It's almost like you're like, things are starting to not feel. And it's like, for me, burnout feels a bit like when you touch something, the ends of your body are very, very sensitive. And burnout starts to feel like the sensitivity shrinks up inside of me. So things that I would normally feel strongly about, now I'm using that in a physical sense, but in my emotions, things that you would normally, but you kind of burn out, you're like, oh, that hurt. Oh, that's nice. Oh, fun, ouch. And so it's like our sensitivity, we begin to flatline a bit. And I recognise that just before Christmas. And the first way I know is my daughter says to me, Mum, it's like you're not even here. And everything inside of me at that point when she said that to me just wanted to throw a tantrum. I just wanted to throw my toys out of the cot. I'm trying this. I become overwhelmed. I'm like, you don't understand what it's like. And in actual fact, what I've had to learn to do is when she says that stuff to me, I have to go, stop. She is my first sign that something is wrong. Stop taking this so personally. She's just being honest with me, and I actually appreciate it. So she said that to me before Christmas, and I was like, right, I need a break. I need my life to change. I can't do this anymore. There's senses of I'm working too hard. Term 4 last year, generally I gig on every second weekend and do this sort of thing, but I also teach at school a lot because I need to feed my children. And I would prefer to be doing all of this, but the reality is I have to do some practical things as well. So this side of my world actually funds itself usually, and I'm really, really grateful for that, but I also have to put some food on the table, pay the mortgage. So I have to do that as well. Term 4, I work every day, so I teach at school every day. I'm not a teacher that plans. Thank goodness for that. I'm a relief and release teacher, so I wander and entertain the troops and wander out and get paid for it. I am good at it, and that's all I do. Don't be panicking. The nature of, the future of New Zealand is not in my hands. They'll be having fun, but they won't ever get anywhere. But so yeah, every day like that, it just was really burning me out. Plus doing all of this, which is like what I love to do, And I thought, right, my life's got to change. I can handle it. And I went into the summer actually feeling pretty good, okay about things. And I entered into a relationship with a guy who I felt. It wasn't really about him, and this is not about beating him up, although I'd love to. But no, this is actually not. This is not about beating him up. This is actually about my issue with the fact that I really, really thought that I entered the relationship in the way that God would want me to do it. And I remember standing up here and thinking, I'm doing this the right way. I'm doing all the right, And I really felt like, God, this is all up to you, and da-da-da, And then it just all came crashing down around my ears. And the day before I went to Bali, on a holiday that was being paid for me by someone else, which was lovely, an all expenses paid holiday, he decided to tell me that it was over. I just cried and cried, honestly. I just spent the entire time, I'm just like, 9 a.m, when does the bar open? I can say these things in this congregation, but I was just like, how early is too early? Never too early. It was just horrible, and it was humiliating and embarrassing, and I just felt like my world was crashing around, and to be honest, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And when I came home, I then went on to this buying the house thing, and I really recognise now that that mania came, but it needed all of the crazed attention of a mad woman to push through the financial side and the building and the buying and all of that. The up and the down is normal. It is normal when you have got a project in front of you to be absolutely raging. You are thinking of ideas, it's working, it's great, it's wonderful, and when that comes away, we tend to flatten. We kind of, we can now relax, and those are normal responses. When your mental health is getting a little out of whack, it's when the highs are way higher and the lows are way lower. But there should be a normal thing like this. Fight or flight is a mode that God has given us. If you didn't have any anxiety, none of our babies would survive because we worry about them. The fact that you are worried about your kids, the fact that you sit there and you think, oh my goodness, did I leave the straighteners on? Have I left, the other day I came to pick up my hair straighteners and found conveniently, they were in their little cane box, which is actually an important part of the story. I found conveniently that they were still on, which was great because they were hot and ready to use on my hair. The trouble is when I stopped to think about it, I realised that the last time I'd used them was 2 days before. So I've been sitting in their little cane box for 2 days. And so I told my daughter, she goes, Mum, you're going to burn the house down. I said, yeah, quite possibly. So worrying and things like that, anxiety is normal. It's good. It's good. It's good that when we've been up, we go down because we could never live in that heightened state. Now, when I was going through I was not depressed, but I was in a state of fight or flight. Now, any of you have been in crisis mode? You go into fight or flight mode straight away. It's like having a shock or a car crash, and it's like that happening for months. So you wake up in the night, you are cold, you are clammy, you suddenly can't eat or you eat too much or whatever, and you go into natural fight or flight mode. God gave you that mode so that when you were sitting in your little hut and the tiger came to the door, you're not like, oh look, there's a tiger. All of a sudden, the gift of God comes into your life, which is fight or flight response. How can I get out of here? How can I rescue my children? How can I jump through, adrenaline? How can I jump over tall buildings? I mean, how do we do amazing things? Our bodies react physiologically to keep us alive. So we have got to embrace it. And they can't stay up. God created you with legs so you can run away. God created you with feet to, help with the legs thing. God created you with adrenaline to actually go, I can get this done. And it's the same way that when you wake up in the morning and it's all too hard, you go, no, I'm going to get up and I'm going to make this happen. And then he also gave us the gift of coffee. And it's awesome. It's like the OK drug. If I told you here that I had 2 really, really strong espressos and then cleaned the house, everyone would be like, oh, that's lovely. If I said I snorted some cocaine and cleaned the house, I'd be shot. But, you know, it's okay. It's all the same, you know, really. I don't snort cocaine, by the way. But isn't it interesting? Stimulants, there's some that are not so good. I'm not sure how I got into that. Can we just take that off the tape? You know, but if you've been in the driveway, and now the problem is it's not always true. And we don't have tigers coming to the door anymore. And we don't have to go out, you know, you don't have, guys, we don't come, you know, what are we having for dinner? You know, to go and hunt and gather anymore. So, but we still have these bodies that react in this way. And if you've ever come home from a little, you know, gathering or something, you're walking down the driveway at midnight, you've been dropped off by your friends, maybe you're a bit younger, and all of a sudden you see a figure perched in your peripheral vision, a dark shadow, and it's just go in fight or flight mode. They need to save us immediately. The problem is it's just a lemon tree. You know when you're a kid and you wake up and there's like a dressing gown hanging on the cupboard door? And your body, your mind says it's playing tricks on you. But your body is responding as though there is a person standing there about to attack you. It is doing all those normal things. And we can get crazy mad at our bodies. Why? Why did I feel that way? And I said to a friend of mine when I was in that real anxious state, I said, look, you know, I wake up in the night and I just feel so vulnerable. And he said, well, you are. You actually are. Now, the reality is I wasn't likely to have someone climbing in the window, but the person who was supposed to protect me had removed themselves from my life. And so I was in this position where even though in my body I was okay, my physiological state was saying something is not right here. And, you know, so we've got to look at this and we've got to go, it doesn't mean that we are... It's not the end of the world, and actually there's a part of it we've got to embrace a little bit and actually go, my downtime, some of those things down, they help me recover from the up times. They help me give a chance to, you know, bring it down. In my life, I've been very unaware. I'm hugely optimistic, generally speaking, and I don't see signs. I'm like, when I had heart surgery when I was 32, I had open heart surgery. And I went into, they said day four, it's going to be great. It's going to be a whole lot better. I woke up feeling like a truck had run over me. I had a massive hole in my heart that needs to be stitched up. And day four, they brought me in and they took me down from the geriatric ward. It was basically me and all these old men getting surgery because everyone else was having heart bypass and stuff, and then there was me. And I think they thought I was one of the nurses that they were experimenting on or something. But anyway, they took me from this ward and they wheeled me down to Starship because I've been born with a hole in my heart. And so they pulled me down into here and I lay down on a bed which here on the TV. And there's Winnie the Pooh mobiles and stuff, and they scanned my heart. And the lady said, now some of you immediately a little red flags going up. Oh, that's fine. I was like, oh, no, it's all good. You know. And she said, I just need to go and talk to someone. So off she went, and I just watched Shrek, and that was quite cool, and Princess Fiona did her thing. And she came back and she said, I just need you to maybe just go into this little room here. So she took me off the bed, and she wheeled me into a little room, and I just sat there. Now, some of you immediately are just thinking, oh, my gosh, you know, like worst case scenario. I was sitting there just thinking, oh, this is cool. I wonder what's happening. I wasn't even really thinking much at all. And then they came in came my surgeon and a registrar, and they shut the door and they sat down. I'm still fine at this point. And she said, we need to talk. There's been a problem. Now, at this point, I suddenly thought, I think something's wrong. But can you see that for me, I assume the best. I assume the best. On the night before I went into surgery, I decided it'd be a good time because I was in the hospital by myself and I had all this time on my hands and I was like reading the menu and having a great time. And people would say, you probably won't die on the table. And I'm like, it's stupid. Of course I'm not going to die on the table. Stupid. I hadn't even thought about it. And I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my toenails because I had lots of time. And it's what you do. So I got this Revlon colour stay. So I did the base coat, left it for an hour. Top coat, bright red, left it for an hour. Next coat, left it. It was a 4-hour process, ladies. You know what I mean. This is the days before shellac. And my toenails were looking exceptional. All the old men in the TV room were a little bit. I was like, you want to borrow some? No, nobody was keen. But anyway, my toenails looked amazing. I turned up for surgery the next day, and the anaesthetist came and he's like, these weren't like this yesterday. And I was like, I know, you like them? And he's like, I've got a bit of a problem. Now, apparently, whatever, they look at your nails to see whether there's enough oxygen flowing through your body during heavy states of anaesthesia. And he's like, well, we're going to have to put on this took. And he's like, what's that do with it? And I said, no, I really like it. And he said, well, I suppose you can, if you really want to, you can leave it on. I said, look, mate, I'm willing to take that risk. So I went into surgery with my fingernails were clear, but I thought it would be a great headline, Christian artist dies, toenails spectacular. But I don't care, I'm quite careless, and I don't, with the carefree, people love the carefree, it's careless, and I'm a bit like, it'll be fine, everything will be fine, everything will be right, and so I don't see the signs, and I've actually begun to embrace a little of this gift that's come into my world, where I begin to see some signs. And part of the downside of that is I've also had to deal with the depressive cycle. But the upside of that is I'm actually beginning to see a little more clearly. And so there's a gritty reality where I kind of go, I want to, I said at the beginning, it's not, well, I'm trying to fight this. It's kind of like I form a little bit of a relationship because it's actually part of me. Now, I'm not saying, oh, yes, this is wonderful and this is all great. But what I'm saying is there's a diamond in there somewhere, and if I can learn something, if I can glean something out of that, as I process through it, excellent. Now, everyone has an opinion. Job, you're familiar with Job, aren't you? Anyone who's come to this thing's like, yep, who feels a bit like Job sometimes? Or some of you will be like, oh, no, that's my friend. We'll talk to you later. He's a great guy. And, Job, I talked about this yesterday, and he came in, and his friends came up, and they said really helpful things like this. Eliphaz said, you've done something wrong, you're being too honest, and you need to forgive more. Bildad said, you need to pray more, you're being silly, you'll never be good enough, and it was your parents' fault. That's quite a good one, actually, so we could probably lean on that one. Zophir said, you need to repent more, you're too proud, and then finally, God's a long way off, and he's not really interested. Great friends, eh? Awesome. Just so helpful. And God came into that situation and said, what would you know? Where were you, when I created? And to be honest, having read through Job a bit, there's not really an answer. There's not really a definitive, this is why. It's kind of like, I still don't get it. I'm still not 100% sure whether it's a story or whether it's a picture. I'm not 100% sure whether God and Satan got together and said, hey, let's make this guy's life a living hell, or why. I don't really know or understand. But out of that, I'm going to glean some stuff. And some of my stuff says that everyone's got an opinion and they're not always right. And in fact, they're always right and they're always wrong at the same time, because every one of those things was actually really good. You do need to forgive. You do need to be honest. It was your parents' fault. I mean, we're all in counselling. I thought I'd just start like a counselling fund for my kids. Just start now. Because I don't know what I'm doing. I've never had a 16-year-old daughter before. I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I tell her all the time. My mother never complained about parenting. She always just was so stoic and beautiful. She never, ever complained. I'm breaking the cycle. I complain constantly. I don't want anyone thinking this is an easy job, but I don't know what I'm doing. And so there's part of it is that some of my kids' psychoses are going to be my fault. And I'm prepared to wear that because I'm blaming my parents. So, it just goes through this, and then they can get blamed by their children, and that will make me feel much better. I think grandchildren are just like God's, way of just going, hee. So you're just like, oh, look at that. I love that, eh? When your kids' children do to them what they did to you, they're just like, it's the circle of life. This is just so great. I love it. Anyway. So I found myself in a situation, and the picture that I kind of have formulated of this, hello, my beautiful friends, hi Ted. The picture that I found of this is, come on in girls, if you feel like, these are two of my most beautiful friends. This is Jenny, who sat in Bali with me. Jenny has heard more about this than any other person in the entire world. I love it.
And I come back for more.
Yes, she does. Oh, that girl, honestly, she's amazing. She is such a gift to me, such a gift. I found myself in a situation after that. So I had the breakup, the Bali, I had the house, so the highs and the lows of that. And the bar was dropping. My bar of normal, if there was a 1 to 10, my 5 was dropping. And it was like my normal response to everything was beginning to numb. Now, I've been heartbroken. I've been in fight or flight where everything is over the top and like, this was completely different. This was a numbness that I've never felt before. For me, crisis was hypersensitivity. Depression felt like non-sensitivity. So it was quite different. They are related, they are cousins, they work together, but it felt quite different for me. And so people around me who had supported me through hypersensitivity, who'd watched me cry and sit on the floor and scream and yell and laugh and do all those things, I had to begin to acknowledge that there was a difference to what was happening to me now, and a numbness that was beginning to set in, and a retreating. Now when I'm fight or flight, I'm flight every time. I'm a runner, I'm a flyer. Now when I was on high alert, in crisis mode, I became a bit more fighter. I'd want to sit down and I'd want to tell everybody everything and blurt out. If any of you had any drama in your life, you know, you're like, hi, how are you? Download, 5,000 words later, and then the next person, how are you? Download, person on the bus, and so you're sort of like that. So I've been in that, and they were used to dealing with me in that mode, but this was different. And what was happening was I was beginning to retreat into myself, and that numbness was beginning to set in. And people started to recognise this. Now my daughter said to me again, it's like you're not even here. Hard words coming from her. I've got a good girl. She's a really good girl. But, in the slightly sort of, it's like you're not even here. And it's, I wanted to respond, but I had to listen. I had to put my little ears up and go, is actually maybe God telling me something? Now, it sounds so nice, doesn't it? I didn't think, maybe the Lord is speaking to me. Later on, once I'd dealt to it, later on, once I'd sifted some of that, I thought, yeah, you know how we stand up here and, the Lord spoke to me, and you'll be thinking, He did, I think, but it took me a while. It's never that simple. I don't drop to my knees and say, Lord, you speakest to me through my annoying 16-year-old daughter. I'm just like, later on I think, maybe she's got a point. Maybe I start to put the pieces together. Okay, so it's probably a bit more of a realistic view of that. And I just was like, oh man. And a couple of people began to say to me, you're not yourself. Now I went to my accountant, who I only see once every year, and I've seen for the last 15 years, and I sat down, and it was like I had slumped. And she said to me, who doesn't even hardly know me at all, she goes, you've never seen you like this. Red flag. I'm like, jeepers. If she, who doesn't even know me, is seeing a distinct difference from last year to this year, she's like, it's not a Christian, no, understanding of who I am or anything, just wow. And I went for coffee with a friend of mine who has been, he's only a recent Christian, he's so refreshing. He said to me, it's fun talking to him, because everything's new. I said, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. He's like, whoa, God's got a Father? It's just like, back up, where do we get that? It's so refreshing. I love it. I could tell him anything. But he's so great. When he was in real crisis mode in his world, actually, before he was a Christian, but it can be in that state, he was heavily suicidal. And he's been very open and honest with me. And he said to me, nobody's going out on my watch. He said, well, I am your friend. Nobody is going to, if I can. And so he decided, and he's this English guy, and so he gets up in my grill all the time. And it's like he has permission from me, but he has the experience and the understanding. So he's like, how are you? I'm like, all right. He goes, are you really? He gets up, I'm like, shut up. He's like, look in my eyes. And he goes, he sat down for coffee, he goes, you got a funny look about you. He's like, you got a funny look in your eyes. I can tell. And it freaked me, was really, really true. And he was one of the people that was just, he wouldn't let me go. He was like a dog with a bone. He's like, go to the doctor, and he's like, and he said, do you have any dark thoughts? I'm like, stop it, Lee, but I so appreciated. He wasn't like pussyfooting around me. He was just straight up in there going, there is a girl, there's something wrong, and I'm not going to, and he rang me the next day, have you been, he sort of hassled me, but sort of bullied me basically into the doctor. So I went along to the doctor, and before I went to that, I went to a conference and I sat in the room and I think the whole thing became very, very clear to me. I went to a conference where Darlene Check was speaking about her battle with cancer. It was amazing. She's an amazing woman. And I sat in this room full of life and love and worship and music and lights and sounds and stimulation and people and my family and Darlene Check and wah, wah, wah. And I sat there and I thought, I feel nothing. Nothing. I tried to stand up and get involved, tried to sing, nothing. It's like you're going, no, nothing. I feel nothing. It was just like flat. Part of me sitting there thinking, that's nice. What if it comes back? How are you going to be then? Because I felt like I'd gone through it again and again and again. I haven't been through cancer. But, you know, just that feeling of like the first challenge and the first victory is quite fun and dramatic in a weird way. And then when it comes back and happens again, you're just like, really? Are you kidding me? And sometimes we'll have to deal with stuff over and over and over again. And that grinds us down. One big drama, we can have a little bit of a victory story. Now, this is not aimed at Darlene. She's a friend of mine and she's an amazing woman. But I just, in that moment, I'm thinking, you know, one big drama can be quite, well, then this happened and then, praise God, it all came right. And everyone's like, yes. You know, and then like, praise God, it all came right. And then that happened. And then that was quite good. And then this happened. And, you know, and we're starting to go, oh, it's getting harder and harder to raise the bar. So I've actually got to look at this honestly and go, got to deal. I sat there, and the picture that I kind of got of this is of a river. So over here is me. And I'm looking across the river to the things that give me joy in my life. So I'm sitting here and I'm looking across to them and I want to receive that joy, you know, to feel that joy. Now over here are the things that give me joy. So they're the obvious things. So over here are my children. Over here is music, singing, my faith, my family, a bunch of roses, a beautiful sunset, a glorious tree. I look out there now and I see that beautiful scenery and the trees waving in the breeze. And what happens is I'm over here and so if I, you know, see that beautiful scenery, and so what happens is a little boat goes across and it picks up the message and it brings back to me and I feel joy. Something inside of me goes, oh, what a beautiful day. You know, you look out and you think, oh, sun's shining, and you get that little ping of emotion. If you're sitting next to someone that you love, you look at them and you're like, oh, I look at my friends over there and I'm like, you know, it's like they're over there and the boat goes over and the boat comes back and I think, ping, they're my buddies. You know, and there's this feeling, the warm fuzzy, the feeling comes to me here. And what happened is, it was like I was here, and over here were all the same things. My family, my beauty, all those wonderful things that I would normally feel, but there were no boats in the water. One little waka, one little canoe is travelling back and forward, trying to take feelings. I really want to feel something. I look at my daughter over there and I really want to feel something. And my brain says to me, she gives you joy. But the message just doesn't come. There's no boats in the water. It was like the Spanish Armada had come through from stress and just absolute, like, you know, the time of that burnout and just burnt all the boats. And nothing I do can cross that at this particular point. Now, I was over here doing all the same things. I was praying, believing God, read the Bible, do my normal stuff. I am different, but I just couldn't feel that situation. And it's just literally you feel like that. And so over here, the numbness just begins to set in. Now, there's a couple of things. Over here, I do have to stay in an aspect of looking. Because if I'm over here looking around and I'm not even taking any notice of things that bring me joy, then that message can't really get to me anyway. All the boats could be piling up and I'd be like, you know, or over here just going, getting down. The other thing is over on this side, we do have to have things in our world that can bring us joy. It's really important. Ordering our environment. Things that will give you that ping are worth their weight in gold. If you like flowers, I got to the point I was like, no one's going to buy me flowers. I'm just buying them for myself because when I walk out into the lounge and I see flowers in a bowl, they give me that little ping. And I'm like, boom, gorgeous. You know, and so things that you like, you know, if you love to listen to music, put it on like a medication. You know, if you like to go for a walk, if you like to do stuff, treat it like your medication. If you like reading a book, that's your drug. Okay, that is something that you go, I need a daily dose of this. It's sitting down in the morning and just going, God, look up to the sky, take a moment, makes you feel a sort of transcendent sense that, you know, yep, God's with me, we're all good. You take that like a drug. You take it every morning at 7:15 and you take it religiously. And it's important that we have these things that can fill our lives. Often when we get into this state, our lives turn into chaos and we start to let go. And so actually in ordering, I'm not telling you to tidy your house, but tidy your house. Now this is coming from a messy person. Your brain will feel a whole lot better if the things around you have the potential to bring you some joy. Even if you're not getting it today, at least give yourself the opportunity to have the potential to bring it over, that if one more little boat gets in the water, it's got something to bring. So actually having some stuff over there and being that for other people. If you're a friend over going, I bring you joy, just stay there. Don't be like, well, she's really not, you know, responding and she hasn't texted back and there's no boats in the water. There's really no point doing this. I'll just go for a wander. Stay there for your friends and be up in their grill, be in their world. So my question for depression and how it felt for me was, how on earth am I going to get some more boats in the water? I wanted it. I want a life full of joy. I want a life that's got something decent in it. I have so much to be grateful for. And yet I felt so low. So I actually went to the doctor and I talked to him about it, and he started to talk through what any good doctor should do before they talk about what they're going to do. They start to talk about what you can do for yourself. Okay? And I'll just go through this a little bit. So the question is, how do we get more boats in the water? How are we doing for time? Okay, cool. As usual, I spent too much time making jokes. That's right. So the first thing that I'd like to say, and this is important, and this is pivotal, and you don't have to do this first, but I think it is foundational, is our faith. Okay, I think it's really important that our foundation. I talked a little bit about this yesterday, having those anchor points. When you are, woo, when it's all go, you've got to have one anchor point. Talking about that focus, and I think it's really important to make one start point and to kind of go, this one thing I know. And maybe ask yourself, if you look at your faith and you boil it all down, what do you know? Not what do you believe, but what do you know? Deeply knowing. And for me, I always come back to this thing that I was created in the image of God. And I feel like that's something that I really know. It's true. It's a great belief system, but I feel like I know that. I feel like it's dropped into my spirit somehow. And so I can kind of go, now because I'm created in the image of God, everything else can grow from that. God created me in his image, and therefore he has great things, you know, therefore he loves me, therefore this will be, you know, therefore kind of bring them down to this thing and actually say, go back to the childlike parts of your faith. Now the Bible talks about having the faith of the child. Crisis and trauma and depression will take your faith like a picnic blanket, covered in all the bits and pieces that you've collected from over the years and the way you do things and the trappings and the fashions and all this sort of stuff, and it just throws the whole blanket up in the air and it all comes raining down. And now is an amazing opportunity to walk around and pick up each thing and go, is this still serving me? Is this of any value? If not, chuck it. If it's vitally important, I'm going to add it back to my picnic set. So I walk around and I pick up something like an understanding that God loves me. I've got to keep this one. That's real important. Over here I pick up style of prayer. Who cares? Like how you want to do it. The Bible's full of different examples. Some people yelled, some people prayed, some people sang, some people did the Lord's Prayer. It was all okay. There are lots of ways to do this. There is more than one way to skin a cat. And some of these really strongly held preferences, I think we've kind of got to get out the window a little bit. You know, we come over here, do we like hymns or modern worship music? Who cares? If it makes you feel ping and it's true and there's something beautiful in it, sing it. If it's the latest song you wrote last week and if it is well with my soul written last century, do them both. They're both beautiful. It's okay. So we get a chance to kind of throw out some of the things of our faith that don't matter. When I was brought up, covered in a blanket was you have to wear a hat. Women can't pray with a hat. Women aren't allowed to talk. Women aren't allowed to speak. Our blankets were covered. You're not allowed to go to the movies. You're not allowed to do. You might notice most of them are what you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to. Girls sit on one side of the church, boys sit on that side of the church. And I would have sworn black and blue that those were pivots to my faith. And then one day, just threw them all up in the air and decided that actually most people don't agree. And they all think we're crazy. That's what happens when you get caught up in a cult. At some point you step out and realise there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't matter. And it's okay, but it doesn't matter. So we've got to get rid of some of the superstitions. I talked yesterday about the tension between fatalism and superstition. The tension between going, well, you know, it's all up to me. I've got to do everything. I've just got to do everything, or it's all just, you know, God can just do whatever He wants. What do I do? And this kind of thing of, I've got to be really careful. Can't say that wrong. Don't sing the wrong song. Don't say that, don't say the magic words. And this absolute thing of if I get it wrong, somehow God's going to be able to go, wish you'd said that in a better American accent, And so somewhere in the middle is this reality that there's stuff that God will do, and then there's stuff that we've got to do. Sometimes we just got to get up and push through. So our faith, I think, is really important to find the truth. The second thing that I've been absolutely important is whānau. Our friends and our family. And some of our friends will become more like family, and some of our family are like our friends. And I just, it's so important to actually have those people around you. Now, I know that I retreat when I begin to feel depressed. I back away. I retreat, I start to hide. And I had a really great question yesterday. When do we talk about this stuff? Talk about the stuff when it's good. When I'm fine and cool, is a great time to say for a friend to say to me, or for me to say to a friend, to say you were suffering from depression. When you're when you're all sweet and happy, go, hey, okay, so today you're all good, cool. Sometimes you start to back away, and I see you starting to close down, and you look quite stressed and tired. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Do you want me to call you, or do you want me to leave you alone? Now, if I text you and you just text back, fine. Do you want me to push a little further? Leave me alone. Do you actually want me to come around and hassle you? Or do you actually want me, do you need just a little time out? Or are you actually one day going to say to me, if only you'd come. If only you'd ignored my blah, blah, blah. If your friend was lying at home in a full body cast, having had a motor accident, and you said, is there anything I can do? And they text you, no, I'm fine. You'd be like, duh. Of course they're not fine. I could list you a list a mile long of things that they can't do. So I'm going to do them for them. Now, I'm not going to sit there and go, now, I'm thinking, you just turn up. Just turn up. Take cupcakes. Always do it. Turn up. Fold the washing. Just do it. And so I think when somebody is in a vulnerable state like this, from your perspective, actually talking to them about what you do want from, what they would want from you, and then actually being brave enough. My friend who really hassled me, on the day I felt a little bit annoyed, because it was kind of like, he was really up in my grill. But man, I'm glad he was. And I said to him later, thank you so much for just being so gutsy, just to push through on that for me, and I really appreciated it. So these are the people that you can trust. It's great to find some people who've actually walked through it as well. Now, there are people who know and understand and people who just care, and that's fine. So I've differentiated. I've got my crew that have walked through this, and then I've got my crew who maybe haven't walked through it, but they just love me anyway. And there's two, they can be quite different. Now, my sister, I feel like some of this I said yesterday, but has not been through great crisis in her life. So she doesn't have a great deal of understanding of many of the things I've been through, but she adores me. We get on really, really well. So when I talk to her, she's not a great person to bounce off all my details, because she freaks out a bit. She's like, oh, but she's such a great person just to be there. I could tell you any time, night or day, if I turned up at her house, there's a bed for me there. No questions asked. Absolutely no questions. Now, I used to go to her house when I was starting to feel quite depressed. And I remember walking in and she'd be like, oh, hi, how are you? Cool. And so I do what I do. I'm fine. Cool. Yeah. I'm a good actress. oh, I'm fine, cool. And so she'd be like, oh, cool. She goes, now, I've got this problem. I want to look for the house. And she'd be like, oh, hi, how are you? Cool. I'm good. She'd go, right, let's talk about my wallpaper. So she'd bring out the wallpaper, and she would talk about the wallpaper, and I'd be like, wallpaper. And later on, when I said to her, look, I'm actually going through this stuff, she said, I feel so bad. She said, I used to come to my house, and all I could talk about was my wallpaper. I said, to be really honest, it was a bit of a relief, because I came in, and for just half an hour, or 2.5 hours, as sometimes the case may be, I could just take my mind completely off all my problems, and I could just focus on her wallpaper. And, sometimes we can be the wallpaper girl for our other friends. We can kind of go, look, I love you, I know you've got a problem, but hey, let's just talk about me for a while. I love you, I know that's cool, but should we go for a walk? I know you're going through a really tough time. Do you want to come out on my yacht? Nice idea. But you know what I mean? Actually just kind of go, can we just maybe focus on something else? Can we do something together? And actually you don't have to have, right, let's just sit down and I want to diagnose you. Or I've been through this, I understand. You probably maybe don't even. But acknowledge. Say things to people like, I have no idea what you're going through, but I still love you. This must be awful. You poor thing. I go, oh, that sucks, that's awful, oh, you poor thing, poor baby. I said this in crisis mode last year, just make sympathetic noises. Oh. I don't know, should we have a coffee? Just sometimes you won't know what to say, but you can be their wallpaper friend, and you can just distract them, and that's a wonderful thing. I love them too. Okay, next one, and these kind of come together. We've got fitness and fresh air. So simple, and it just sort of seems a little silly. Now, God gave us endorphins as a bit of a gift, and in actual fact, there's been scientific evidence that the 3 things that will give you an endorphin release quickly and the most effectively, in this order, are singing, laughter, and exercise. So singing, laughter, and exercise. Now this is not from some person who wanted to join their worship team, sing, smile and jump around stage. This is actually a scientific study. I was looking into this about children. I was talking about play. And it said that play increases resilience and gratitude in children, hugely. And, and we forget to play. We forget to have fun. We actually forget to go out there and have some fun with us. Now, I talked yesterday about the fact that when I was driving down to the place that should be remain nameless, but I downloaded a whole lot of podcasts. So I don't know if you listen to Fetchboard and Megan. I love them. They're just a morning crew who do radio. I love them because I've got I'm pretty I don't mind things that are a bit cheeky, but I love them because they're really, really funny, but it really doesn't cross the line for me. I actually find them really entertaining, and they can get so many laughs out of just stupid stuff, and I love it. So 4 hours of them, and I was laughing away, despite myself, in spite of myself. And so actually laughter, your body can't tell if you've had a good cry or a good laugh. It can't, there's a release or a relief. You know how when you have a total good cry, and you have a good laugh, and your body can't tell the difference, it will release endorphins to that level. So let's make it a good laugh. Let's not have a cool bit of a laugh in that. And to me, vitamin D is like a little shot of antidepressant. And actually getting out in the sun and just spending some time out there. And I mean, we joke about this stuff, but it's actually important. Like, you could actually say, I'm getting my daily dose of vitamin D. Now, this is hard in Auckland because it's always raining. But, a little bit of fresh air, a little bit of sunshine, and actually getting out. Now, it's the last thing you feel like doing. You don't want to. I was just lying in bed in a big tent of a dress, just, oh my gosh, just absolutely the last thing I felt like doing. So it leads me to my next issue, which is actually pharmaceuticals. You may have noticed, because I'm a teacher. I was going to call this Juliagrace and the F words, but I won't. 50 Shades of Grace. I'm not in charge of marketing, clearly. For me, I was here. So I went to the doctor and he said, right, you need to do these things. He was a Christian. It was amazing. I had no idea. But, we talked about, once we'd fished out the fact that we were both Christians, he said, friends, family, fitness, fresh air, time to yourself, da, 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 da. I said, Mate, you're preaching to the converted. I know all the stuff. However, my one little canoe is not enough at the moment, and there's not enough boats in the water. And so for me, in that situation, he gave me medication. Deeply humbling experience to admit that I actually needed some help, and so he gave me, we worked on a little dose, so I actually take Prozac, and at the moment I'm on Prozac as a low dose for that. And what it did for me is it just piled in a bunch of boats in the water really quickly. It also makes you really fat. So I went from being skinny and miserable to fat and happy. It's a bit of a payoff, I know. And then after a while you're like, okay, this is making me miserable, this isn't really working. But anyway, but the thing is for me, now I don't have a scriptural reference for this, but I was sick and I went to the doctor. And for me, it put some boats in the water, enough for me to, over the next few weeks, just allow some of that stuff to start, and then I was like, okay, I'm now going to start addressing the other stuff. Now, if you just do the pharmaceuticals, you will not solve the problem. All you do is end up sitting over here, fat and happy, and then fat and probably miserable about the fact you got fat, and you are literally just kind of going, I haven't actually made any inroad into A, how I got here, or B, what else was going on just before. So it's almost like, for me, the medication is like putting a bunch of those inflatables in the water. They're there and they're using, and they're kind of like a temporary thing. Now, if I have to take that for the rest of my life, I don't care. If I was a diabetic, you don't after a while just go, oh, you probably should have gotten over that by now. Let's stop taking insulin shots. You know, you take it. If you need blood thinning, you take warfarin for life. So I don't know yet whether that's something that I will do forever or whether it's a seasonal thing for me. But I do know that the next most important thing for me was then I had to address all this other stuff. So I got up and I thought, right, what can I do? I went back to the gym in October and I thought, right, I am a lot bigger than I was before, and I thought, what can I do? I'm not going to beat myself up over this, but I can get to the gym 4 times a week for the next 10 weeks. And however I end up, that's what I'll be, and I will embrace that. And I'll feel fitter and stronger, and I'll be good. And I did. So I went to the gym 4 times a week for 10 weeks, an hour and a half a time, 60 hours. Hard work, and I prioritised it. And I said to my kids, I said, look, I said to Bella, particularly my daughter, I said, I'm going to make this a top priority. I said, you just need to let me go. Okay, I mean, my kids are older, so it's quite easy. But and I said to them, look, I'm going to make this. And so I pulled this up, and I said, this is important for me to be well right now. Now, it's very easy as a mum to just kind of be like, well, you know, we'll just deal with everything else. But I actually had to make myself, and now I'm not going to keep going 4 times a week forever because it's too much. But I can go 3 times a week. And I can continue to make that a priority in my world. So I don't know whether the people you know or love or whether it's you are going to require that, but that's for a medical professional to help you. What I can say is if it's required, it's not the end of the world. And if you don't need it, then don't take it just for fun. And don't think that it's your last stop. It's just part of the process. But it can, for me, throw a whole lot of boats in the water and then help me to process through the next stage, which is rebuilding, which was really, really important. 2 more things that have been important for me. 1, to have love tank. And this is hard when some things kind of say, well, you are not in that situation, you know. So it's really easy. But the reality is I had to think about this, and I thought, things that fill up your love tank. So it's very easy for me to go, okay, well, if you're married, this is just a no-brainer. Because clearly your love tank is 100% full all the time. You're so lucky. Right? You're so lucky. All you have to do is just roll over in bed and go, look, there we go, my love tank is full. Ta-da! And yet I meet people all the time who strangely don't feel that way. So what's going on? What's wrong with you people? So I think the reality is it's not just about having a partner. So that would suggest to me that there are other factors and other aspects. How you your attitude towards that, how your partner treats you, how you treat your partner, those are things. You can fill up your love tank in other ways. It doesn't have to be from the most obvious kind of way. On Christmas Day, I dropped my kids I took them, I had them for the morning and then I dropped them to their dad, and that was fine. We have come to a situation in my world where actually I've come to accept that, and it's peaceful and it's fine. Okay, it's okay. And so I did that. But when I get back to my family, there's this it's like something's kind of been vacuumed out of me a little bit of a hollowness that comes on special occasions when I'm there. And everyone else got their kids and I don't have my kids. Now, I'm not saying I'm hypersensitive to that, but there's just sometimes it's like it just goes and the needle comes in. And so I was like, I just feel a little bit, and these are where I start to feel that bar lowering. I sort of stand here and I think, feeling like a wave of depression can start to come in. And I looked around and I saw my great nephew. I'm a great auntie, which means I'm so good at being an auntie they've given me a promotion. I'm thinking of writing a book called, because I've got lots of nieces and nephews, so I'm Auntie Julia. So I thought I'm going to write a book called Rather Peculiar Auntie Julia. I reckon there's something in there. Because I'm just mad. But anyway, this little great nephew is 9 months old. He's so cute. And I picked him up and he smiled at me and he gave me a kiss. And I just hung on to that kid all afternoon. Now, that child will never know that on that day, he just was sending my love tank into overdrive. I was just like, why so cute? You know, and the great thing was at the end of the day, he was going back to his mother. And I was tired. I was like, boom, take it away. And then I went away and had 8 days holiday on my own. And it was lovely. You know, I'm not in there going, I wish I had a baby. I don't wish I had a baby. So glad I don't have a baby. But he filled that tank in me. And there's times when I sit and I'm on my own and like my sister's cat comes and I'm like, you know, and they come. There are things that can fill your tank, that will fill your love tank, that are not necessarily the obvious stuff. You can do that for other people. There are other ways. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There are other ways to find that will actually start to fill you up a little bit. Those are the things that give us some joy. And I'd say overdose, like OD, on things that can bring you the potential to bring you some joy. I like sunshine and light. So in my house, I've bought, a house with all these windows, big sheer curtains, and so I overdose on it. And I just kind of like, when I walk in and it feels like it's, I like my house to be tidy because it feels like that. And so I work hard on making it. So when I walk in, I'm overwhelmed by that feeling of like, ping, 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 ping. And I feel like if I worked hard on that, I could have a fuller love tank than somebody else who maybe has more advantages or more reasons to feel that way, and yet I have quite actively made that happen. And I'm really grateful for that. And the last thing I think of is having a real forward focus. A little mantra or a little totem. Has anyone seen Inception? The movie Inception? My favourite all-time movie. I love it. Combination of like totally mind-blowing and Leonardo DiCaprio. But anyway, it's awesome. But in the movie, they remind themselves. So it's a movie about being in a dream state, and they go into a dream state, and they sometimes it's all made up, but they forget sometimes whether they're in a dream or whether it's reality. And the way they remember whether it's real or not is they hold a little thing. They have a little what they call a totem. So it's like a little reminder, a little thing that they hold in their hand. One's got a little dice, one's got a little spinny top, and it's all part of the story. But and so I actually think, I love this idea that there are little things that are reminders of the fact that we are thinking forward, like the forward focus. So I had not a forward focus, although good car, but a forward focus. So I used to think, if I'm starting to dive back, if I'm beginning to sort of rewind a little bit in my head, I'm starting to lower my defences a bit, and I think forward, forward, forward. Forward, forward, forward. And it sounds stupid, but it's like, but I remember that, and it reminds me of that. Someone gave me a little wooden cross, and it sort of fits in the palm of your hand, and I'll just chuck it into the jacket of a pocket, a jacket pocket. And so what I would do is whenever I would put that jacket on, it's like, I put my hands in the pocket and be like, it's a reminder. I have terrible attention to detail, as I have told you before with fish, And so the reality is I need to be reminded all the time of having some stuff that actually reminds me, I'm here, God's here, it's going to be all right, it's going to be okay. If it's not okay, that's going to be okay too. And so some little tokens or some little things or some little reminders around us. The Bible talks about, reminders, bring it back into our memory. Back in biblical times, in the Jews, they put scripture on the door frame and they put them on there. They took it really seriously. They sort of stuck it on themselves and that sort of thing. Now, I don't necessarily think you need like a big poster of a cat saying hang in there. You can if you like. I don't think it needs to be cheesy. I don't think it needs to be kind of weird, but it's got to remind you. Someone gave me a little verse. Be still and know that I am God. And at the time, it's the last thing I want to hear. So I stuck it on my steering wheel. And so it reminded me each time, and it annoyed me less and less. I was like, actually there's some truth in here. So some little things that actually remind us. I read my Bible more if I leave it open somewhere. If I have to go hunting for it, chances are I won't read it. If it pings up in my email box, I might read. I'm much more likely to. I'm far more like, distracted. And so I do some things that bring that hope and bring that reality and that truth into your world. Don't make it difficult for yourself. Make it easy. Make it so you walk. I've got a sign that sits on my bedroom door. It says, "A day without laughter is a day wasted." Every time I wake up, I look at it and I'm like, yeah. Actually, I like that. And so it's like it smacks me between the eyes every time I sit up. Not literally, but it's right there. And I think sometimes we've got to bring those things into our mind and actually bring them into focus. So for me now, I'm here. I have worked very hard to fill my will with lots of things that bring me joy. Most days there's a lot more boats in the water, and I'm really, really grateful for that. Some days they're not getting to the shore very much, and I begin to feel that kind of waffly, I'm starting to lower. But what I'm starting to learn now is to feel as it begins. I think, okay, what's going to happen? Now, I'm not deathly frightened of it. A couple of days of introversion ain't going to kill me. A little bit of time out, it's not going to be the end of me. But if I find that I just get sluggish and I just can't get out of bed and I just start to feel like the closing over, that's the time when our faith actually has to kick in. Faith without our works is dead. And I think this is the difference between, I talked yesterday about contentment, about just going, this is just me, it's my life. And actually at some point standing up and going, you know what, I have been given tools and at some point I'm going to put that stuff into action. So if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to go for a walk. Or just something. And it's amazing how when we use our minds and we use our hearts like that, a little thing will just lift us up out of that. My little nephew, little Lincoln, came in on that day. I was quite overwhelmed. I'd gone home from that and I'd gone and had a sleep and nobody knew. I felt really alone, quite isolated. And I thought I could just stay here all night and miss the Christmas dinner. That's how I felt. I was actually feeling really really awful. I didn't sort of want to say they're filming me because I feel a bit. But I felt like I could just exit from my family for today. It wasn't like terribly awful, but I just felt like I wanted to run away and hide. And I got in the car and I came there. And that little boy, I picked him up. But if I'd looked at him and thought, that's not going to work. I don't have a husband. My kids aren't here, then I would have had a really, really awful day. So at some point I had to go, pick up the baby. So there will be days for you and there will be days for people around you where you've actually got to pick up the baby. You've actually got to, he's come over, the boat's brought him over to the shore. There he is, my little gift, my little Jackson. And if I knew I was going to pick him up, the first thing he did was go, kiss me on the cheek and if I hadn't picked him up, I wouldn't have got that kiss. And so there is a time that I reach down in the boat and pick up the baby. So there's some activity, there's some faith, and there's some work in there.